Hey everyone, welcome to Masterclass 4. I'm Chrissy, and this is our fourth and our final class using Spectrum Aqua markers. We are going to get AQUA-ainted. If you haven't watched the first 3 videos, I recommend that you do that first. We are going to be using some techniques in this video that I have shown in previous classes, and then we're going to build on it. So I just showed you a sample of a card similar to what we're going to make. We're going to do kind of like a no-line watercoloring technique along with a custom background. So I say no line, there are lines, they're just kind of hard to see. So I am using some distress ink here. I'm using it for 2 reasons. One, it's a light color, so I can see as I'm stamping it, but it does kind of go away as I color. And 2, because it is distress ink, same reason, it's going to go away as I color. As I'm adding my aqua markers and water, it is going to kind of blend in with them because distress inks are activated by water. So if you don't have distress inks, don't worry about it. Stamp with a light color, or you can use, I guess, any color you want depending upon the markers you're using. Kind of try to match them, and you can always do what's called the stamp off technique, where you ink up the stamp on a separate piece of paper, and then stamp it onto your watercolor paper, and that way it'll be light. You can even draw something yourself with a pencil and then erase it later. So I am going to be using an acrylic block kind of as my palette. I've done this before in previous videos, so you should be familiar with this by now. You don't have to do this. Feel free to put the markers directly on the watercolor paper. Just remember, very, very vibrant, and I kind of feel like you have a little bit less control over it. Once it's on there, you really have to add quite a bit of water in order to blend. So, but everyone is different, so use whichever option works best for you. So I have a water brush here. Again, I use water brushes because I feel like I have more control. However, you can use a regular paintbrush with water if you so wish, whatever you are comfortable with. There is no wrong way to watercolor, just like there is no wrong way to color anything in. This is all about being creative and doing what works for you and getting the result that you like. That's what art is all about, right? So you can see I'm going in and I'm actually adding a light base to start out with. So I'm just adding a little bit of water, and then I'm kind of coloring in most of the image. Not all of it, but right now I'm coloring in parts of the image that I'm going to use that particular color. So I'm just doing the face, the body, part of the tail, and the ears. So then, after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in some of the shadows. You can see that I kind of clean off my brush. Always keep a paper towel next to you when you're watercoloring, because lots of time, I mean, you can use different brushes if you want, but sometimes I feel like you get too much of a buildup of water as well using the water brush. You can just kind of like clean it off, kind of start from scratch by using a paper towel. So you can see I kind of did that. I felt like I had enough of the shadow, so now I just wanted plain water to kind of blend it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that multiple times. I'm also going to do the same technique with different colors. So, and keep in mind that you want to do this and then kind of let it dry and then go back over it again doing the same thing. So right now I'm going to play a little bit of music so you can just kind of color along with me, watch what I'm doing, and then go ahead, like rewind it, recreate it yourself. Go back and forth as many times as you need to see exactly what I'm doing, and taper it off to what you want it to be. Put your own touch on it. Do it the way that you want it. Just kind of take my technique and turn it into yours. And I will see you shortly. Okay, so you can see that I also am using a heat gun here. You don't have to do that. I just do it because I feel like it kind of goes faster. If I'm in the middle of watercoloring and I'm feeling my mojo, I kind of don't want to wait for stuff to dry. So now with the small end of my marker, I am just going in and I'm adding those final touches. I have like a black and I have a dark brown, so I'm just doing the eyes, just kind of tracing over what I have, some dark shadows in the tail, so it kind of sticks out, the ears, the nose. So use that detailed edge of the marker as needed, but do this step last. Do this when you know you're not going to be adding any more water, because if you add the dark color and then you go back in with a water brush, remember it's going to react with that water. So stuff could kind of start getting blurry. It could kind of start blending because, I mean, that's what these markers are made to do. They're made to react with water. We're going to watercolor. So there are still some lines on there. Like I said, I call this no line, but I kind of say that loosely. If you look really close, the lines are there, but they're really not that noticeable. And I love doing this technique with like animal stamps, stuff like that, because I feel like it is a little bit more realistic. It looks also beautiful with flowers, just it does take a lot of patience to get those petals right and to get everything done. So use any stamps you want. Practice, practice, practice. That's all I can suggest. So if you have a coordinating die, feel free to die cut this. I did not have a coordinating die for this particular stamp, so I just took some scissors and I'm just fussy cutting it out. I'm leaving a little bit of a white border, the way that it would look if I did have a coordinating die. You can go right to the edge if you so wish. It is completely a personal preference. I just like the look of the white border, and you can see how cute that little fox is. And you know, I did the shadows on the left and the right, so the highlights are in the center. So if you're imagining the light source, it would be coming from the front. And I know sometimes that can be difficult to kind of think about ahead of time. So if you need to, you can always like draw a line above your stamped image to remind yourself, hey, this is where the light is. So, you know, it's coming from the center, it's coming from the left, it's coming from the right. You will get the hang of it, but like I mentioned before, just practice, practice, practice. That is the most important thing I can say with these markers, and I mean really anything, is just practice. So I have a non-stick craft mat. You don't have to have one of these. You can use like acrylic paper, a black. You can probably try. If you have like a piece of acrylic from a sheet from your stamp set, do that too. You just need like a slick surface. So I just scribbled a couple colors down and then I sprayed it with water. I've heard this referred to as the ink smooshing technique. So it's similar to that, except instead of using ink, we're using markers. This way, the colors are all going to kind of coordinate in with that box. I'm using the same type of color family, like the reds and the browns. It's have like a burgundy in there and stuff like that. So I wanted everything to kind of have that same kind of like autumny feel. So I cleaned it up a couple times. That's the problem with this technique too, is if the colors kind of start like blending together and stuff, everything does get kind of like muddied and dirty. So I do kind of like tend to dab it with the paper towel, and then I clean up, use a heat gun, let it dry, and then go back again. So this does take a couple steps of doing the exact same thing over and over again. But it's not insanity, I promise, because you do get a really good result. Yeah, you're doing the same thing over and over again, but it's to get this finished background that is totally custom. Honestly, you could probably never recreate the exact same one over and over again just because you don't remember where you scribbled, you don't know exactly where you pushed the watercolor paper down. But I think it's so pretty. I love this particular color combo. I kind of have a thing about like autumn and fall. I love those colors, but this is also great. Even for spring, you know, do like a really pretty bright color combo with like some flowers, or even if you're going to do like an ocean scene, you can do a bunch of different blues with a little bit of green in there. So any card, any type of style of card, even like a birthday, like balloons and stuff like that, that can kind of be like confetti in the background, right? So you can really use this technique with any type of card you're doing. It is not specific to just like a thinking of you card or anything like that. You can even do it for like a sympathy. I mean, anything, it's going to work. And like I said, it's completely custom. So once you do this background, you probably won't get it again, but give it a try. It's super easy, and it does. I mean, it kind of looks like you watercolored it, and you just smooshed the watercolors on there. So to finish off this background, after everything is dry, and you do want to make sure that it's dry, because if it's still wet, the ink is going to kind of bleed out. I just scribbled on acrylic block again, like I did before when we colored, but this time with the water brush, I'm just picking up the color and I'm flicking it. I love the way like ink splatters look. I've always been drawn to that. So I tend to do that a lot when I do like the smooshing technique. And I do want to point out too that you saw me, I did have a paper towel where I was kind of like holding it up when I sprayed. That's because when I spray the water, the color really does fly. So I wanted to protect all of my stuff that I had like off camera behind that acrylic block. So just keep that in mind that this does tend to get a little bit messy. So keep paper towels on hand and kind of protect everything. When you're spraying, hold up that paper towel. Just protect all your stuff, because if not, you're going to end up with little splatters all over everything. And maybe that'll work. Maybe in a future card, you grab a piece of cardstock. Oh, there's splatters. This is great. But just keep in mind that this does tend to get kind of messy. So I created a card base out of just white cardstock. It's cut to 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5 1/2. So it's a standard A2 size card, but it is top folding instead of side folding. And now, once that background is 100% dry, so that includes all of the little colors that we just flicked on there. So heat gun it, let it dry, whatever you need to do. Now I'm going to add my sentiment. So keep in mind, if you stamp the sentiment on a wet piece of watercolor cardstock, it is probably going to bleed or it's not going to stamp very well. So again, everything being dry, super important. Even this fox. We're going to go ahead and we're going to add some foam squares to the fox and to the background. These squares will not stick if everything is still wet. So even though we're watercoloring, remember, you do need to allow things to dry, whether, like I said, heat gun or otherwise. You do have to be kind of patient. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, you're going to do all this work and then you'll come and look at it in a few hours and it will just peel off of your card base. So you can add 3D foam squares. If you don't have them and you have just like fun foam, you can do that and just add adhesive on the front and the back. Whatever you need to do. You also don't. You could just adhere it with regular adhesive as well. You don't need the height. I just recommend it because I think it gives a little pop. It kind of separates that fox from the background, so you can see it a little bit better. So here's both cards. You can see what I was talking about with the different color schemes. 2 completely different looks, yet the same stamp set and also the same type of markers. So thank you so much for joining me for these classes. I cannot wait to see what you create, and thank you for being a member of Stamp Nation.